We've had Alex on in the last hour talking about what is really at stake here, and that is nothing less than the collapse of America into a North American Union. And, of course, we're going to be joined in the third hour by Dr. Jerome Corsi, who realizes this as well. Unfortunately, it appears that only InfoWars and WorldNet Daily have really picked up on the blatant comments from General Petraeus and Nancy Pelosi, essentially taking the mask off. And if you're not concerned about this issue, you need to understand that this is something they've been gaming for quite some time. A collapse of the American economy so that out of that chaos and out of that collapse, they can build their new world order. This goes back, this is bipartisan as well. This is something that was being planned by Oliver North under Rex 84. They talked about different conditions and under which they would do this, where they would bring in military law and martial law. Now we have the NDAA. Does that concern you that they've actually codified into law that the military can arrest people, not tell anyone, not give you any due process, hold you indefinitely, do whatever they wish to you? That is part of the legal structure that has been set up by Republicans as well as Democrats. Now, Obama gets a lot of blame for the NDAA, and he should. He's been a tremendous hypocrite on this. He came in, told much of his base that cares about civil liberties, that he was going to be someone who was transparent, who was going to stand up for that, and yet his record has been horrendous on that. But he is doing exactly what was done with NAFTA. Just as General Petraeus pointed out, 20 years ago, they enacted the statutes. They essentially created NAFTA then. But they were very wise about how they gradually rolled this out. They didn't have the borders collapse at that point in time. They didn't incentivize massive, uncontrolled immigration that the country cannot support at that time. No, they waited a while for it. And now they are making it a fact. That's what we're going to be talking to Dr. Jerome Corsi about. We're also going to be joined by Jakari Jackson in Murrieta, California. This is a place where people have stood up and said, we don't like what's being done to our country. Isn't it interesting that an organization created out of the lies about 9/11, Homeland Security, is now the organization that is collapsing the homeland, that has essentially erased the borders of the homeland, and yet still continues to harass people, even to an even greater degree at the airports, stepping up new little harassments. Make sure that your phones are charged because we're not going to let you take your phones in if they don't have a charge. We're going to throw them away or confiscate them. Continually harassing people within the borders as they completely erase the borders. Same organization, Homeland Security. We're also going to be talking about some NSA issues, of course, because now we see that tyranny is coming out of the closet. We've got the NSA essentially channeling J. Edgar Hoover. And we're going to talk about that in historical context, as well as what we just learned from the latest rounds of Snowden leaks. We're also going to talk about Agenda 21 and how that's being rolled out in Obama's new highway program. Of course, they love to talk about sustainability. How do you get sustainability with completely open borders? They're not concerned about sustainability, either environmental or economic. They want to bring the country down. As we pointed out earlier, we've got an article up on Infowars.com. Source says that Obama is giving Murrieta area immigration and custom enforcement employees temporary paid leave. And as Paul Joseph Watson points out, this is Cloward and Piven's strategy in full swing. And of course, those are two sociologists who about 50 years ago said that in order to enact their socialist utopian state, they needed to first collapse the U.S. economy. And the way to do that was with a massively expanding welfare state. And the way that they wanted to do it was through the Democrat Party. Very clear plan. We now see that being put into place. We now see NAFTA being put into place.
Hi, I'm Shane Steiner. A lot of you have been following my progress using Supermale Vitality. The last 19 weeks has been an incredible experience. I was feeling a little down and lethargic during the holidays, and none of the supplements that I was taking were doing any good. That's when my longtime friend from high school, Alex Jones, introduced me to Supermale Vitality. I was a little skeptical at first. Not only would I have the energy to work out and go to the gym, but it was actually the changes were happening to my body a lot more rapidly. My whole mood, my libido, everything had completely changed. The concentrated organic herbs, they stimulate your natural systems to produce the natural hormones that you need. I just really wanted to bulk up and hit it hard, and I went in for about the first 5 weeks and was lifting heavy weight and just really hitting it hard, and I gained 20 pounds of muscle immediately. Since that, I've decided I was going to lose some weight and slim down. I just changed up my workout a little bit, and 35 pounds came off. Folks, this is not a joke. This is not a gimmick, it's real. Super Male Vitality, available at InfoWarsLife.com.
We're going to be joined at the bottom of this hour with Sha'Carri Jackson, who is in Murrieta, California. And if you've been covering the implosion of our borders, you know that there's something very different going on there. We have the citizens of that area who are standing up to this. They see the government standing down. They see Obama putting ICE agents on temporary paid leave, telling them, we'll continue to pay you, just don't do anything about controlling immigration. They don't want it to be controlled. And many people are asking, this is a story on Infowars.com from Michael Schneider, why is Obama encouraging illegal immigration when we can't take care of millions of our own citizens? In particular, the VA situation. We've got 57,000 veterans still waiting for their first appointment, according to the Daily Caller. We've got in just one VA alone in Phoenix, we've got 1,400 to 1,600 people put on an imaginary waiting list, a waiting list that they were not going to get seen. They were lied to. They were told that they were going to get something and they didn't get it. That should be a warning for the people who are coming into this country. That should be a warning for all Americans, how government is lying to us. But of course, we've sent our InfoWars crew out there because the way the mainstream media is covering these protests out there, and essentially what they're trying to do is make the pro-illegal immigration protesters, they're ignoring what these agitators are doing. And Paul Joseph Watson put up a story yesterday that essentially showed a video that looked like the people that were being arrested were all pro-illegal immigration supporters who identified themselves as anarcho-communists. But the media has portrayed this as if it is the citizens who are protesting what is being done. And of course, it is a Cloward and Piven strategy. The White House is asking for another $3.8 billion just to maintain this emergency situation that they have created. They always use the crisis, and as Nancy Pelosi said, we should view this as an opportunity, and she certainly does. She uses everything that they manufacture as an opportunity to make the government bigger. But let's just take a look at what's going on in California. We've got long wait times in California as emergency rooms blaming this on Obamacare. And yet, what will happen when we import uncontrolled numbers of people into this country that don't have any means to provide for themselves? Many of these people unaccompanied minors. Well, there's already tuberculosis spreading at the camps. This is being reported by Fox News. They say that although a rosy picture is being portrayed by NPR, by most of the mainstream media, and even by the Department of Health and Human Services, the people that they have talked to at the camps, people who are nurses, say that there are many children who are showing classic tuberculosis symptoms, spitting up blood, a constant cough, and chest pain. What is going to happen as these people come onto the rolls of the unsustainable welfare state that is being created in this country? And of course, this is all about the dreams of the children, as Obama likes to put it. You know, we had an American dream once. What was that dream? That was a dream to own your own home. The federal government incentivized that dream. They gave people tax credits so that they would go into debt to get a mortgage on their homes. How did that work out for Americans? How did that work out, that American dream, when we all got into debt with the bankers and then we go through a pump and dump strategy? Many, many thousands of people, tens of thousands of people have lost their homes. Many more will continue to do so. But of course, the banks were made whole. The banks came out smelling like a rose. Their losses were recouped. They said that they needed it because they didn't want massive unrest. They needed to be paid off with the TARP program, or there was going to be riots in the street. And yet they didn't help anybody with these mortgages. They kept all the money themselves. Now we've got the DREAM Act. And we should think about how he pumped and dumped properties, and think about the massive number of people that are coming in. This is a pump and dump of people, essentially. And again, it's Cloward and Piven strategy. But there's something else going on here, too. And that is reckless endangerment of children. So many people want to say, you just need to back off in Dallas, the mainstream media up there, in terms of reporting what was going to be happening as people were being brought into Dallas area, we had a judge go around the neighborhood telling people, you can speak, you can protest, but you need to do it within the law. Well, they have proscribed that so tightly in Dallas that there is no free speech, no protest there. We've seen that with the George Bush Library. We've seen that when InfoWars and Alex Jones went to Dallas around the JFK 50th anniversary celebration. They don't like protests. They don't like the First Amendment, frankly. And when a judge goes around door to door telling people, don't exercise your free speech, essentially, if you do so, you have to do it within the law. Well, you know, the First Amendment says Congress shall make no law. There shouldn't be any laws on our fundamental rights to protest, to address our grievances to the government. And we have a very real grievance when we are being treated like slaves in this country as the borders are being opened up and we're opening our wallets, or we should say our debt, to anyone who wants to come into this country. But as they were reporting on that, they had a quote from someone there who says, hey, you're grown-ups. Don't protest kids. This isn't simply about the children. Of course, the thing that initiated this was Obama's DREAM Act. That was 2 years ago. And that was being portrayed as they were going to help the children who were already here. But now the message has gone out that this is proactive for anyone who wants to come into the country now or in the future. They will get these benefits. And it's not just for children. It's for those up to the age of 31. But there are a tremendous number of children who are coming in. What is happening to those children? You know, we just had a story that came out of Georgia where a child died in a hot car. He was locked up in a hot car, got up to 88 degrees, maybe to the low 90s. This child died. They're bringing murder charges against the parents. Why do we do that? Why do we compound those types of legal actions on parents who have just lost a child? Well, there's a good reason for that. We want to make an example of them. We don't want people recklessly endangering children. We want to get the message out that this is not the way you treat children. Even dogs. Sometimes there's criminal charges brought up when people leave their dogs in hot cars and let these dogs die. Yet, Obama is incentivizing people to send or to bring their children through some of the most dangerous areas in the world, to come up through Central and South America, to run up against the drug gangs, against the human trafficking gangs. He's incentivizing that with his welfare state. He's encouraging it with his laws. That's what's changed. It's not the economic conditions in those countries. It's the incentives that Obama is offering. It's Obama who is recklessly endangering the children. Look at this story that was up on Drudge Report today from National Review Online. HHS will, quote, muzzle the media during a tour of immigrant child housing. Now, they've put out rules, and this is in Oklahoma, where we've already seen a congressman, Jim Bridenstine, try to get in to see what's happening to the children. He's concerned about their welfare, and rightfully so, because he knows the history of human trafficking. He's been involved in trying to shut that down in the past. He wants to know who brought these children, who are unaccompanied minors, so to speak. How did they get across this continent? Who are they being turned over to? He wanted to get in and talk to them. Of course, he was turned away even though he was a congressman. And they're telling journalists, don't talk to these children. We're going to let you in, but it's going to be a very controlled situation. Listen to the way they're going to control it. They'll let journalists go into the military facility, but only if the media promises not to record anything. If they promise not to ask any questions during the tour and not talk to any of the staff members or the children. Now, Jim Bridenstine said, this is a violation of the First Amendment. It's not transparency. HHS is trying to muzzle the media and hide the human tragedy that has resulted directly from the administration's failure to enforce the law. It's not compassion. This is a human tragedy. This is a crisis that is being manufactured so that they can use it as an opportunity to grow the government while they collapse the economy. It's all about NAFTA. We're going to be talking to Dr. Jerome Corsi in the next hour about what Petraeus has said, what Pelosi has said, that essentially America is finished. This is now North America. We don't have two different countries. We happen to have one community with a border that just happens to run through it. But going back to this HHS situation, no recording devices, no questions allowed, no interacting with the staff, and they will take questions, but only after the fact. This is what we see everywhere we go now. Everywhere InfoWars reporters go, we see this kind of total crackdown on information. No information is allowed out, and it doesn't matter whether it's this immigration strategy or something else, but they don't want to talk to anybody. They don't want anybody reporting on what they are doing. You know, if they were really concerned about the welfare of the children, they wouldn't mind if people talked to them, asked them if they were doing okay. Doesn't this have kind of a creepy deja vu feeling about it? It certainly does to me. I remember when Saddam Hussein, in that crazy PR gimmick that he had some children sitting on his lap. Do you remember that? Remember how awkward he looked? Do you remember how the children were kind of looking around, scared to death, and he's kind of laughing, oh, yes, everything is okay. That's essentially what Health and Human Services is doing, and nobody is allowed to talk to these children to see if they're okay, to ask them questions, to look into their health. But we have reports that there are many children who are getting sick. We have reports that those who are taking care of them are getting sick. And, of course, they're trying to shut down what is happening in Murrieta and Dallas, trying to do that proactively. At the same time, we've got a general who is saying that we need to go to the borders, that this is an existential threat to America. This is an existential threat to America. He's right about that. But that is the wrong strategy to take. That is something that the government has been planning for quite some time. We covered this on the InfoWars Nightly News last night. We talked about how the Endgame program that Homeland Security had put out, that was something that exactly matched the same situation they're creating right now. They create a crisis, and the left wants to address it with a welfare state. We're going to be joined later in the show with Jakari Jackson, who is in Murrieta, California. That's a place where there's been a lot of protests going back and forth between pro-immigration and anti-immigration forces there. I shouldn't say anti-immigration. They're not against immigration. They're against illegal immigration. They're against open borders. They're against sending ICE agents home on paid leave. They're against spending $4 billion to take care of children just at the border right now. That's not talking about their education, not talking about their welfare. Where are they going to live? These unaccompanied minors that Obama is encouraging parents to recklessly endanger, sending them through this dangerous journey into America where we don't know where they're coming from. We don't know who brought them here. We don't know who they're being released to. And when congressmen try to find out about it, they're shut down by the federal government. Now, there's a lot going on in California. One of the things that's happening there, of course, is that an appeals court has just ruled that immigrant dreamers can get driver's licenses. Now, remember that the dreamers are people that go up to 31 years of age. They're given essentially amnesty. And it's not just amnesty for people who are already here. It's for anybody who comes here now or at any time in the future, apparently. And so they're going to give them driver's licenses just one step away from getting a voter ID. This is about not only collapsing America, but of course rebuilding the socialist state that they want. That's the other part of it. The other part of that is to, once you collapse us economically, to make sure that they've got a massive voter bloc that is here in place. And Louis Gohmert from Texas had this nailed. Here's what he had to say.
In the end, they have said they want to turn Texas blue, they want to turn America blue. And if you bring in hundreds of thousands or millions of people and give them the ability to vote and tell them, as some Kiko Canseco said, he had illegals in his district that were told, if you want to keep getting the benefits, you have to go vote. And President Obama's lawyer is not going to allow them to ask for an ID, so go vote or you're going to lose your benefits you're getting now.
You know where that comes from, of course. Now, pork barrel projects are when a congressman essentially bribes people in his district by saying, look at the money that I've brought home. Well, originally where that came from was the plantation slave owners would essentially put out pork barrels for their slaves to encourage them to do what they wanted. Now we've got essentially gerrymandering by illegal immigration. Of course, they're giving them driver's licenses. We see that in Charlotte, not just in California, they're giving proposed city IDs. This is something that's causing a lot of stir back in North Carolina. And in the article, they point out that there's several California cities, Oakland, Richmond, San Francisco, that are giving out IDs to people who are here illegally. Also joined by Washington, D.C., and of course, New York City. New York City is even spending $8.5 million in its first year, and then going to take it down to over $5.5 million in subsequent years to provide IDs to people who are here illegally, flaunting the rules. As Joe Biggs pointed out, he's known many people who fought and died because they wanted to get citizenship. That was the condition to citizenship. We know many people who have waited for decades to try to get in from other countries, and yet we're told that we're not compassionate if we don't just open up the borders and let these people in, that we're somehow racist. Well, look at what Jerry Brown, current governor of California, said back in 1975. He said, don't dump Vietnamese refugees on California. That's right. He said in 75, he tried to stop planes that were carrying refugees from landing in Travis Air Force Base near Sacramento. And also, Joe Biden said the White House has not informed Congress adequately about the number of refugees. Now, of course, Joe Biden was a senator at that time. George McGovern told Newsweek, I think the Vietnamese are better off in Vietnam. But now, Governor Jerry Brown signs this legislation that gives driver's licenses to people who are here illegally. It will be very easy to make that next step to turn them into voters. Just as Louis Gohmert said, this is about turning the country blue. It's about collapsing the country economically. A population bomb is going to be just as devastating to the United States as if it were a suitcase nuke. And of course, there's always, with totally open borders, there's a possibility that you could have a suitcase nuke, not only just a population bomb, but you could also have a pandemic. As we reported earlier, there are now signs that many people are reporting that there's tuberculosis among the children in these areas that they're taking care of. But of course, they don't want you talking to or examining the children. They don't have the children's best interest at heart. If they did, they would allow people to ask them who they're being turned over to. They would allow independent third parties to look after their health. They're keeping it very secret for a reason.
Alex Jones here for Infowars.com. We're going to be intensifying our efforts to awaken free humanity to the scourge of the globalist in the month of July. And starting this July 4th, we are going to slash prices in a celebration of true Americana, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, and the Declaration of Independence on all of the Made in America products that you will find at madein1776.com or InfoWarsStore.com. We're talking about Made in America belt buckles in brass and nickeled brass that state it loud and proud. Molon Labe. That's why we have the best-selling Made in America men's and women's Molon Labe Infowars.com shirts. Ladies and gentlemen, this is a win-win. You vote with your dollars. You support the most hardcore organization out there for promoting true ideas of libertarianism, constitutionalism, basic human empowerment. But more importantly, you get T-shirts and belt buckles so you can meet like-minded people. So you have a conversation starter with friends and family and coworkers. We are reaching out to each other. And you also throw it in the face of the anti-gunners and the rest of the parasites out there that you're a free man and woman, and that you're not going to be a slave, that you're not going to be intimidated to shut up by their tyranny that they call political correctness. That's why in the month of July, we have got giant specials on everything at madein1776.com. But to expand the InfoWar, we're offering the biggest special in the history, 13 years of PrisonPlanet.tv, our multimedia platform. We're offering the equivalent of more than 5 months free right now when you get a membership at PrisonPlanet.tv, and you get 11 memberships that can be used with the same username and passcode so you can share it with friends and family. Now is the time to fund the war bonds. Now is the time to fund the info war. Now is the time to get aggressive. Now is the time to double down. Now is the time to realize you are the people that made the info war so successful and one of the leading lights worldwide against tyranny. You don't stand behind us, you stand right beside us, and I salute all of you on this July 4th, 2014, and going forward in the month of July and onward. This is about freedom worldwide and that desire for human dignity and self-determination that beats in the human breast. We are brothers and sisters together in the true spirit of liberty and the animating contest of liberty. And so I quote in closing the great Thomas Jefferson that I have sworn on the altar of God resistance against every form of tyranny. And never forget, if you are watching or listening to this transmission, you are the resistance.